Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, blue skies, which means we're probably not in the UK. This week is going to be super exciting because we're going to the Masters World Championships. What does that mean? Well, it basically means if you're an old fool like myself, 35 years or above, you're eligible to race for being the world's fastest old boy. So that's exactly what we're doing. Let's go check it out. Oi, oi. Well, here we are, we're on the lift, we're on our way up to have a look at the track here at the Masters World. It's very hard packed, which means it's going to be very fast, it's going to be quite brutal. Let's go see what it's all about. So I feel this lift is something that I'm going to know pretty well by the end of this trip. Well, there we go, there's the start gate. This is something that I'm going to be super nervous about, being at the top of that on Saturday come race day. Right, so here we are then, out the start, and then we're just straight into it. It's a lot steeper than where I live back home, that's for sure. Literally descending the whole of where I live in Dorset within the first sort of 10 meters. There's the start. We've got one jump and we got another jump already. It's, you know, I'm liking this track. Sort of quite a blind sort of step down if you can get it. Key thing with this is you have to get it, otherwise you're just going to do a massive case and you may as well just sort of scrub. It's hard without a bike. Might actually be worth going on the grass and round, but we'll sort of soon see how much speed we have, because there is normally a road jump up there into this, which there isn't this time. So you're straight out the start gate, so it's whether or not you've got enough speed. Traverse across, and then we go into this hip, and then we're straight into this straight on the piece. Now, if this was the UK, there'd probably be about 100 different turns by the time we get down here, but it's making the most of the steeps here, so they're just literally flat out. So you're bombing on the piece, and then look at that for a view. You certainly don't get that in England. If you can imagine, we're going to come out super wide, and we could potentially go on the inside here. It's going to be quite hard because you're going to get fixated on the original trail. We don't know until we ride it. It could be super slippy with how dry it is. We'll wait and find out. So far, every jump is very blind, so this is another sort of blind step down, and as you can just about see, as soon as we land we have to get on the brakes because we're landing in a fairly tight left-hander. So it's actually super dusty underfoot, so I'd imagine this is going to be quite a problem when it actually comes to braking. The amount of riders this track's going to have is going to make it a little different. So this is actually quite an important part of the track. I think we need to go on that inside to at least get this inside hit, because the problem is the existing track, as you can see, there's a big berm, but they've obviously taped that out, and it's going to be very hard to get on this off climber across. You need to be hitting this inside, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is by getting on the brakes early and getting on this inside and carrying that all the way through. We need to make this inside, because as soon as we're out there, that's just going to get blown away. And the thing is, where it is so dry, there's not really going to be a rut there, because as you can sort of see, the gradient goes away, there's nothing to push on. So 100% we need this inside. I mean, you could look at it, if you went outside there, you cut across, but I think to slow down and cut across here is going to be so hard. We're making that inside, hopefully, and then as soon as we hear, we want to try and cut to the right hand side of that little tiny route, and then we can open up that next turn. If we get stuck here, it's not the end of the world, but it just means we're going to stall in that corner. So hopefully if we stay on that outside, that's going to enable us to then open up this next turn. So you can just see there's a higher line on the left. This is quite an interesting part of the track actually, because I've looked up there, you can gap into this, and then I was thinking you could gap over this and then down there. The only downside is if you gap this, you're then landing straight in a compression, then you've got another little drop that's going to G the bike out. So I'm starting to think maybe if we like keep the wheels on the ground here, and then we can almost gap over that, but we won't know until practice, and we're going to get plenty of it. So there's a lot of grassy turns, so we need to control our speed prior to them, otherwise it could get a little messy. Go off camber this is, and especially with cut grass as well, it's super slick. So we just need to make sure we're out here on the brakes early and then cut across. Nice chilled jump, and this is going to go flat out into the next section. It's a race of this, especially with the speed you're going to have from up there. Honestly think the key with this track is where you've got the main line, just stay into the right hand side of it so you're missing all the tiny little holes. Quite interesting this line, because if you go up high there is actually a line through there which I'd imagine is going to get cut in between these two trees, where you've got the lower line, which means you're then braking and then turning. So it's going to be quite hard until we see a number of riders ride it. So I reckon this line will actually come out a bit more through that shrubbery, and then almost, if you have a look, inside all the way through. Inside. The only downside is there's not that much of a catch down there. The main line we go down like this, you could end up just dropping, but then you've got a massive catch to carry your speed. So I guess we won't know until we get on the bike, but there is that inside all the way up, which is just nice and straight. Or obviously the main line there, we'd just be able to carry our speed a bit more. So going further on down the track, I've decided just up there, I'm going to stay on the right hand line, which means I've got plenty of support in that berm, which also means that I can just carry my speed. I think the other line's going to be very direct, but it's going to be very hard to carry your speed out of. Steep shoot, come around the turn, carry our speed down here. There is some off camber lines, but I just think the speed you're going to be carrying around here, you're just better off staying safe and catching the outside rut. If you imagine, if you catch this outside right, you can carry the speed. If you end up going a bit too ham on the inside, you're just going to lose your speed. It's going to be quite a fast section, so straight out the woods, and as you can sort of see, very rocky, very hard pack all the way down. Traverse across, and this thing looks quite gnarly, very blind. So stay on the left hand side looking at this. Right, we've gone over the blind crest, and then you can see there's a tiny little road jump here. So it's definitely the best route, because then we can gap over that rather than going on that inside. Off the road jump, round the berm, straight into this little booter. Just need to remember when we land on the brakes, because we've got an off camber tight right straight through. Right, we've then got this little sniper drop. I say it's sniper because we've got to make sure to stay left, otherwise we get caught up in all these rocks. Rider's left down here, which then keeps my speed going, and most importantly I avoid all those horrible little rocks. So bottom half we're coming hooning on down here, and you just see how like loose the whole trail is. So it's going to be very interesting after a few days riding or a few days practice, just to see what happens with this track. I've just been speaking to someone who's used to race here, and he sort of said a lot of the guys actually put sort of half spikes on because of the fact that all the grass gets churned up and it just turns into massive dust bowls. So we will wait and find out. There is a few lines where you can go, like on this high line on the right hand side here, where you can hop that. But I honestly think the speed you're going to be carrying, you're just going to be better off hitting that low line, having the support, and you're going to be a bit more fatigued when you get down here as well. So by hitting the low line, we can then open up the next turn. So this is actually quite interesting. If you imagine the speed you're going to carry around there, I feel like the low line's going to be a little bit better, because then you can set yourself up high. The problem we've got is there's a bit of a pro line here where you can gap the roots, but then you're automatically facing down the hill. So once you think the speed you're going to carry, now if you look at that over opposed to underline just means we can open up the next turn. So this is actually quite a technical part of the track, because there's quite a good line choice. You can go in tight there, which means you're on the brakes, and then you can almost straighten this up. I almost prefer the fact that we're on that low line, you don't need to brake all the way up here, you hop into this, which means we ain't going to get on that high line there, but it means then we've got the support of this, and we almost have to hip off this little route across, and I think that's the one. Such a critical section actually, because we really need to carry the speed along here, because it's quite a flat long traverse. Lines everywhere, but I'd suggest, looking at it, this is the one. We are getting there. So outside line, straight over this, just making sure that we're hipping. Use that rock as a reference. I think if we can stay almost to the left of it, there's nothing to worry about. As soon as you clear that rock, you're all good. So just stay to the left hand side and we're all good. Done the hip. All about these loose horrible grass corners, just trying to stay as wide as possible to try and keep that speed. So I reckon that bush is probably going to be gone by the end of this, so we can just go as tight and high as possible. So all of this at the minute is absolutely disgusting, but as soon as you get a few tyres on it, it'll probably be pretty good. And then we've got a double, and then we're nearly at the finish. God. The wind's actually a bit of a pain here, to be fair. It's not the biggest of jumps, but the wind's a bit of a pain, so you probably will feel the front wheel just wanting to move slightly. So off the jump, straight through into the finish. See how much wind there is. And there we go, through the arch. And that is the little track walk here at the Masters Worlds. Bring on race day. Oh,